will raise their right hand. Do you solemnly swear that you will support and defend?
I am a reformer. I believe that reform is in fact necessary.
The Honorable, the Speaker, House of Representatives, sir, I write to notify you that pursuant to New York State law, I have tendered my resignation as a representative in Congress for the 26th Congressional District of the State of New York to the Secretary of State of the State of New York, effective at the end of the calendar day on February 2nd, 2024. Signed sincerely, Brian Higgins.
You even have your own open. Well, it is the end of the leadership era for the 26th District. At the stroke of midnight, Congressman Brian Higgins will no longer hold a seat in the House of Representatives.
For his next chapter, he will take center stage at Shays Performing Arts Center as president and CEO. He joins us now to reflect on his past accomplishments as he looks forward to his future. Brian, thank you so much for coming in. Congratulations to you. This is a big day.
Yeah,
I want to ask you, what are the emotions right now?
An abundance and deeply felt gratitude that this community allowed me to represent them for the past nearly 2 decades. And the work that we did, I never went to Congress to change the world. I went to change my community, and that's what we've tried to do. Rebuilding the waterfront, helping to secure a large settlement from the New York Power Authority, which is financing the redevelopment of Buffalo's waterfront. Rebuilding the psychology of Buffalo and Western New York. I think Buffalo had an inferiority complex. It believed that its fate as a community was determined by external forces over which it had no control. Wide right, no goal. And I think Buffalo learned to stand up for itself. And today, The Economist magazine, the New York Times, Fortune magazine, Forbes, all doing stories extolling the virtues of the new Buffalo. For the first time in 40 years, the population of young Buffalo is increasing, not decreasing. The fastest growing neighborhood in Western New York is downtown Buffalo. There's a new sense of pride. Young people are coming back, and I think that serves as a basis for a very, very bright future.
So much of your leadership was just that, getting Buffalo away from the old Buffalo, both physically and mentally, and getting it into the new sort of century or new millennia, if you will.
Yeah.
And you did that with things like Canal Side. You also fought hard for things like Flight 3407,
yeah.
and the families for that. We saw you tweeting today on your social media as you were looking back on some of those major accomplishments. And so much of that you were leading the charge on.
Yeah.
What was that like, knowing that you were really seeing actual results? You changed that. You and other leaders in Congress and those families made that law happen.
Well, the families made that happen. The families of the victims of Flight 3407, I remember the first day they came into my office as a group. And they didn't blame the pilots, and it was pilot error that caused the crash. I mean, the plane went into an aerodynamic stall. The pilots did the exact opposite of what they should have done. The plane pitched and then descended very, very quickly, killing all 49 on board and 1 on the ground. But they were just, they were all together, and the sense of empathy, the sense of purpose, they have made millions, tens of millions of people safer, the flying public, because of their sacrifice. And their line was that we can't bring our loved ones back, but they wanted to ensure that that didn't happen to anybody else. And this period, since February of 2009 to present, has been the safest period in aviation history, in the history of the world. And it's extraordinary. They should be, I'm a student of government as much as I am a practitioner, but that should be a case study, because it just shows you a determination of citizens that banded together and changed things. And they were up against, millions and millions of dollars of lobbyists. And it was just them. And they came, and everybody, we were a big part of it. And it was a good example of bipartisanship. Nick Langworthy, my Republican opponent, brand new. The industry tried to kill the 1,500-hour pilot training requirement. And he submitted an amendment to the Federal Aviation Administration bill, went up against his leadership. And I delivered 194 votes, but that was very courageous. So I'm very confident that that effort will continue, because it was always bicameral, Senate and the House, but also bipartisan as well, and it will continue to be.
Brian, you have always been an advocate for so many, and here we are, we're talking almost 20 years in this role.
Yeah.
When it comes to this next chapter for you, was it a difficult decision? What led you to it?
Well, it was a difficult decision, but I will say that spending much more time in Washington in accomplishing so much less than what Congress has a capability of doing. And it's come to a point where, issues are weaponized. So look at the immigration issue, for example. 30 years ago, it was an issue to be resolved by both Democrats and Republicans. Now it's an issue to exploit. And the American people are no better off. We need a good, organized, non-chaotic immigration system, and there's just no resolve coming from Congress right now. And then opponents are demonized, and then people find a way to monetize, to make a lot of money. Everybody that's making a name for themselves in Congress, they're making spectacles of themselves, but the nation's divided. So you may lose 50%, but you develop a national fundraising base, and that's a powerful inducement for a lot of people. But when members are in the back of the chamber yelling expletives when the President of the United States is delivering, the State of the Union address, that's, I just figured, look, I guess I could stay there and continue to try to do good things for Buffalo. But I think, future generations, my successor will be very, very effective in that regard. And the idea of the Shays, it's an iconic cultural institution. I used to be a teacher of history and economics, and I wrote a course at Buffalo State University called The Economic History of Buffalo and Western New York. So, over 100 years ago, all the great artists, Frank Lloyd Wright, Daniel Burnham, Richard Upjohn, Louis Sullivan, Louise Bethune, the first female architect in the United States. None of them were from Buffalo. They came to Buffalo because we were a city that exuded a confidence to say to these creative people, you can get your vision turned into something real. And now we have this beautiful theater, the Shays Buffalo, with a great staff, a great board of directors, and we are going to try to take it to a new level. And it's already one of the most attractive touring venues for Broadway shows coming off Broadway. And we'll be announcing in a couple of weeks a new Broadway series for 2024 and 2025. We have the 100th anniversary in 2026 of the Shays Buffalo Theater. It was an Irish immigrant that was born in St. Catharines, Ontario, that came to Buffalo, ended up in the old First Ward, was a bar owner, was an iron worker, and he built these series of theaters, this being the grandest, the Shays Buffalo.
And now you're going to be leading that wonderful institution with tremendous history. Part of your role and part of the role of Shays and to continue its existence and continue to deliver this incredible Broadway series each and every year is to raise money. You are going to have to beat the bushes out there. Now, as a member of Congress, you might have a leg up in that, right?
I'm used to raising money. I'm used to raising money, yeah.
So that has to be, that should strike a good confidence, a good chord in the supporters of Shays.
Just tell you a story very quick, and I told this many times, but I think it's worth repeating. I had a colleague in Congress by the name of John Hall. John Hall was from New York. It was a hard district. He was the lead lyricist and singer for the band Orleans. So he brought some of his musician friends to Washington to do a benefit concert for him. Graham Nash, Jackson Browne, and Bonnie Raitt. So I was friends with John. He took me backstage with him and introduced me to Bonnie Raitt. Just said, here's my colleague. He's from Buffalo. She name-checked the Shays Buffalo. She said the Shays Buffalo is one of the most beautiful touring venues she's ever played in the world. And this is what Buffalo is about. And this is the great, and it's people from the outside that recognize that I think we have a tendency to take for granted. And the Shays is an iconic cultural institution that has nothing but potential, positive potential in front of it.
Before we let you go, if I may, because we are running short on time, I'm curious if we could go back to the political sphere, if we will, just briefly. We know that State Senator Tim Kennedy is running. Do you intend on making an endorsement in this race?
Well, I'm going to be.
If so, will it be for the man who intends to be your successor in Tim Kennedy.
Tim is an outstanding public servant who comes from a beautiful family and has great values, and is a guy that's been with me for a long, long time. He's very, very capable, and I'm confident he'll do a good job. Now, mind you, I can't say that after 5 o'clock today.
That's
because
right.
I will be part of a not-for-profit. So Tim Kennedy is my friend, and I'm hopeful that he will be my successor, and I'm confident that he will.
Very good.
Wonderful. Well, Brian Higgins, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jordan.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
We wish you the best in your next chapter.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
We'll be in touch.
Dave, thank you. Jordan, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.